don't need that. Thank you. That was a song written by Karen Drucker, and that's the title of my message today. Only the rest of it is Let Go of the Shore and Dare Greatly. I know that sometime a little while back, you had a study of Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and I heard that from Richard and Vicki, and so I got the book and started studying it as well. And as you recall, Brene Brown is a researcher and a storyteller who teaches about the power of vulnerability and living wholeheartedly. She teaches us how to uncover the shields that we put up to protect ourselves, and how the reason, or there is a connection to that resistance to being vulnerable to some underlying shame. But she teaches us shame resiliency and how to live our lives wholeheartedly. And so my message today is about letting go of the shore, taking risks, and daring greatly, even when we don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life when I was in a holding pattern where it seemed like I wasn't going anywhere. And that's what the sailors call the doldrums, because there's no wind. You could say no wind, no spirit, right? To carry the sails of the ship. And so the problem isn't that we go through the doldrums at times or that we feel vulnerable and afraid to take risks, but it becomes a problem when we allow that to steal our abundant life that is promised in Scripture that Jesus said in John 10:10. He said, "The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." Think about a time in your life when you heard spiritual guidance and maybe you were a little slow or resistant to follow it. Maybe you question yourself, or you question, can I do this? Or, no, not me. Well, it took me a long time to follow the call that I got on my white stone some decades ago that said minister on it. And it probably very well could have been here in this church. And all along the way, Vicki and Richard have been very, very wonderful about asking me, so how's that ministry, calling coming? Have you thought about going into the program? Every time I would see them, I felt such wonderful support that they could see that for me when I couldn't see it for myself. Today, I hope that we can identify some steps that we can take toward that fuller, more abundant life in spirit. And sometimes we have to feel the fear and do it anyway. Brene Brown shares a famous speech by Teddy Roosevelt called "The Man in the Arena." And the point of his speech is about not listening to the critics who aren't in the arena with you, but to listen to those who are in the trenches with you. Well, I took the liberty to do a little metaphysical on it, and I think it makes sense that the people, those critical voices that are in our own heads, are those critics outside the arena. And the people in the arena are those thoughts and feelings and ideas that support the greatest expression of our lives. And we also have people in our lives that are like that too. We can listen to those like Richard and Vicki who saw that vision for me. If you've studied unity long enough, you will have learned about denials and affirmations, which are the tools that we can use to release those limiting thoughts and ideas and beliefs that are in our subconscious and conscious minds. And our Christ mind can infuse us with these truths, but those affirmations don't work until we clear out the crud first. Emily Cady talks about the process of chemicalization in Lessons in Truth, and in the Bible there are several cases in the Synoptic Gospels where it talks about putting new wine into old wineskins. Particularly, Mark 2:22 says, "And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. I have had to leave leave my comfort zone into a more expanded life, which started 17 years ago when I left northwestern Montana. A beautiful place, beautiful night sky, no light pollution, could see the stars at night, lots of wonderful things there. But there was a call to move to Virginia, and so I moved to Richmond. I walked into this church, the first Unity church that I could find when I came here, and I was a part of this congregation for several years. And as I took classes here and also at Unity of Bon Air and became a licensed Unity teacher, and then that minister calling kept nagging me, I finally followed it. And one day I may have to leave the comfort of this community here to take a Unity church opportunity. Karen Drucker, in her book, Let Go of the Shore, says this, quote, "The more I thought about it, I realized that life has many deaths, literally and spiritually. These births and deaths involve letting go of the shore that we have known and setting sail to new, unknown, uncharted waters. Ultimately, to do this means trusting we are okay, that we have what we need, and that we are safe." You heard that in the song that I sang. That was also her song. See, it takes risks or letting go of our safety net to live that life full in the Spirit. And we cannot receive if we're clenching our hands. So think of a time of your life when you were holding on so hard to something that you knew it was time to move on. It might have been a job change, a relationship, moving from addiction to recovery, moving to a new place, retirement, just something that was pulling you to a better quality of life. Remember what that was like and what it took for you to move into that greater life. So let's apply that today. I hope you all have access to a pen and paper or your device that you can type a few notes. Think of something today that you feel a longing or a pull towards, something that you might have had on the back burner for a while, a desire in your heart. For what does this experience, what is it that you want to have with that experience? Is it not that abundant life, that joy in spirit? So just make a note of that one thing. And right here, right now, you can write it down. It may have been something that you've already shared or you're still working on, and that's great. And now ask yourself, what do I need to do? Or what do I need to release or let go of in order to fulfill this desire? And you can state that by saying, I release blank. And let the answer come to you and fill in the blank. I had to release lack of confidence in myself in order to be able to go into the program and go through it and graduate. All right, so I release blank. And then the next thing you can write down are, what are 3 things today that you can do to move toward that goal or desire? They can be very simple things. And then tomorrow and the next day, What are 3 more things? Or maybe you could carry over one of those things you didn't get to today, but you know, the next day. So it's one day at a time, one step at a time to move forward and move toward that desire. And when those critical voices in the arena or outside the arena say, "Are you sure you can do that?" Or, "It's too hard, I can't," then here's what you can say. Yes, I can, and I will. So let's say that together. Yes, I can, and I will. Again, yes, I can, and I will. Thank you. It sounds like you really mean it. I used to participate and lead fire walks, as Peggy was talking about, back in the 80s and 90s. And in order to walk across those hot coals without getting your feet burned, you better believe you had to keep focusing on what's on the other side, not on the hot coals, not on the heat of the fire. So that is what is required of us, to just keep our focus on the prize, and it shall be yours. And when those critical voices come up, we can use our denials and affirmations and stop ourselves, do a pattern interrupt, as Mary Morrissey calls it, and move into that truth, that greater truth. So here's how I recently applied this lesson. Just toward the end of my schooling, I was preparing to go to Detroit to do my license and ordination interviews. I had a speech all prepared, and I was dropped off at the airport. Well, earlier that day and some days prior, I had taken the challenge of one of the other ministers who had said, every day when you get up, do this for 21 days, say, everything in the universe is working for my good. Okay, so I was practicing that, and when I got up that morning, I said, today is a great day. Everything in the universe is working for my good. And I got to the airport, up to the gate. I was already checked in because I did that online. And they started announcing flight after flight was being delayed because of weather that was happening. And my flight was delayed, and the time for the new flight to board was past my connecting flight that was supposed to leave out of Boston. And at first I was like, oh boy, here we go, And then I said, wait, no, everything in the universe is working for my good. What if I just lived this whole day like that? So I went up to the gate agent and I told her, I'm going to miss my connecting flight based on when this flight is leaving. Can you help me? And she looked in her screen and she says, well, yeah, there's a flight over here, 2 gates down. It's leaving in an hour, but it's full, but I'll put you on standby. And then she said, but if that doesn't work, I'm going to go ahead and book you on this other flight, and so you'll get out anyway, either way. So I went down to the other place, and I ended up getting the last flight on the plane. So I was just floating on air, flying in the air, and feeling blessed. And I got to my destination in Detroit an hour and a half earlier than my original itinerary, and it was direct. And it was a direct flight. So I was like, yes! How often does that happen? And then I realized, my luggage isn't here. And so I had visions then of tomorrow morning. I'm supposed to be there at 9 o'clock doing interviews. Of being in my street clothes that I'd slept in all. I'm like, wait, no. Everything in the universe is working for my good. So I went up to the baggage claim, and the woman for Delta gave me a nice little packet. Well, here's an overnight bag just in case. And I said, well, thank you. And then we'll try to get your bag to you at your hotel this evening. And it ended up coming at 8 o'clock that night. Well, as a result of this whole experience, I decided to change my talk altogether. I said, I need to talk about this, being flexible and going with the Spirit, letting go of what I how I think it has to go. And so I gave the best talk that I'd ever given, and I got really high praise and remarks for my unplanned talk that I was going to give. But so I was very blessed, and I felt this is something to keep doing. Everything in the universe, no matter what is happening, everything in the universe is working for my good. You've got a class coming up that Fred Hess is teaching. There is nothing and no one against me. The eye of the storm. That's a good way to learn how to practice this. Just last week on June 22nd, I saw the Daily Word. I was really impressed with it and how it fit in with my message I was planning. And so I'm going to share it with you. The affirmation for Thursday, June 22nd, was, "Success comes when my divinity and humanity act together." What is success? I realize defining it for myself is the first step to experiencing it. When I get recognized for something that I have achieved, I celebrate my success. If my goals need to change midway through, grace intervenes and carries me in a new and better direction. I sense something more powerful at work than my personal vision and effort, the presence of Spirit. I am most successful when I trust the invisible force to work alongside me and guide my path. Ultimately, success is partnership with Spirit. I'm going to say that again. Ultimately, success is partnership with Spirit. I do my part and remain open to what Spirit tells me and shows me. And I am most successful when I allow my divinity and my humanity act together. In conclusion, I'm going to share with you a little something that we would share with the people on the ropes course, because our ropes course experience was all about taking risks and moving out of your comfort zone and learning about yourself. And so my boss would share this poem. It's called "To Risk" by William Arthur Ward. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk showing your true self. To place your ideas and your dreams before the crowd is to risk being called naive. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken, because the greatest risk in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing, becomes nothing. He may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he simply cannot learn, feel, change, or grow, or love. Chained by his certitude, he is a slave. He has forfeited his freedom. Only the person who risks is truly free. And I would add, only the person who allows vulnerability is truly free. There's an old Zen story about a monk traveling to the nearest village to do some commerce for his monastery. And so he was on the walking trail, and the trail would go along a river and wind in and out, and it was a long trip by foot, but that was how he traveled. And so he's walking along, and the trail went awfully close to the edge of the bank, and he lost his footing and he slipped. And on the way down, he grabbed a branch on his way down into the water, and he's hanging by the branch. The water's dashing against him, and he's just trying to pull himself back up. But he can't. He's just getting more and more tired and weak, and he can't. He finally has to let go, and he goes into the water. And then he's fighting and swimming to get back up on the bank, so that he doesn't have to go downriver. He can't get back up on the bank. The current is too swift, and so he turns over on his back and he floats into the next town where he was supposed to be a day sooner than he was supposed to get there by foot. So that's what it's like, when we resist spirit, we might take a little longer getting there, but if we can follow the direction and surrender to it, if we let go of the shore and we dare greatly, then we can sail to a freer, more fuller life that is beyond what we could have imagined. See, I couldn't imagine myself as a unity minister back then. But today I stand before you as a testament of that process of surrender and letting go, and it just is ongoing, isn't it? It's just ongoing. So let's all let go of the shore and dare greatly, sail to new lands, and let the winds of spirit carry your sails. Namaste.